Nidhi Kattiji, who will be the last presenter, last talk, will give the last talk of the day. Nidhi Kattiji is going to present on Yalgur Kartik One Jatre, diverse traditions and cultures in a Madhva neighborhood. She is the founder, vice president, the History Enthusiasts Association, independent researcher, cultural historian, and archaeologist and iconographist. We had earlier presentations from Shaiva perspective, another presentation from a Vaishnava perspective. The earlier presenter also has a Madhva affiliation, from Vaishnava perspective. Now, Nidhi Kattiji is also coming with a Madhva affiliation, and it is a particular village, a location in Karnataka regarding which she is going to present her talk. Over to you, Nidhi ji.
Namaste, sir. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity, first of all, because everyone else in the panel are very experienced and I'm very young among them. So, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I'll be sharing my PPT. On the screen, you can see the picture of Sri Alaguresha. I will start with the prayers. Saptagrama Devo Bhuta Sarvesham Jagatam Patihi Hanuman Saswayam Vyakto Yato Ramadnyaya Sita. My topic today is Yalgur Kartik, One Jatre, diverse traditions and cultures in a Madhva neighborhood. I will start my talk with a mythological story. Uh, the Yalgureshwara's idol was originally found not in the place where presently it is situated. It was basically found in a place called Gundina Kere, which is 5 kilometers from Yalgur. Uh, Bhimacharya Katti, who is ancestor of my family, came to Yalagur and settled over there from Maharashtra. But some say that we came from north also. There are no written document or inscriptions regarding this. Just oral tradition are there. And he got a dream in which Sri Alguresha came and told him that I am situated at this particular hill, which is 5 kilometers from the place. Please bring me and establish in the place where you are staying, which was the bank of Krishna River. And presently also we can see very beautifully, calmly the Krishna River is flowing here. So the temple is actually situated on the Krishna River itself. And Bhimacharya Katti, he went there and brought the idol and established it in the area where presently the temple is situated. The idol was covered with a stone. So the stone architects tried to hammer it off, but unfortunately they were not able to bring the idol out. So the Bhimacharya Katti, he prayed to Sri Alguresha that please show us a way and please be visible to us. He prayed, and just in one night the idol itself was visible to all the devotees. This is a mythological story which we get. And if we want to connect it to archaeology, so the place uh, where the idol was situated earlier, the hill, also can be seen today. And the marks of the hammer also can be seen on the idol. Just to show the hammer marks, I have taken the photograph without alankara. Here you can see it's not a clear surface behind the idol. You can see the marks of idol, I hope so, here, which also can be proof to tell that this story was true. Sri Yalguresha is revered as Yeluru Vadaya, meaning the head of 7 villages. So he's basically guiding 7 small villages which are surrounding the Yalguru. Interestingly, as we know, in all the smallest of the small villages in India have one or two Hanuman temples for sure. But interestingly, in these 7 villages, uh, excluding Yelgur, of course, the 6 villages they don't have Hanuman temple because they believe that Sri Yalguresha of Yalgur village protects them. So I'll just name out those 6 particular villages. Yanakanchi, Yaragalla, Yarazari, Yaragad are the 6 villages, and if we include Yalgur, they will become 7. Uh, and that's why he is called as Yeluru Vadaya. Coming to the history of Yalgur, as already I told the mythological story, I'll skip it. Historically, it was an Agrahara, particularly predominantly inhabited by the Madhva Brahmin community. Presently, also, if we see, highest population staying in Yalgur are Madhva Brahmins. And one more interesting thing to be noticed here is that there is no masjid in this village. So that is very interesting, which proves that there was no much Islamic attacks on the village. And as we know, Agraharas were taxless village. It was also the same, but again during British period, it became a tax-paying village. We also get a story of a British period, which is very popular through oral stories in Yelgur. Dasaya, a devotee from non-Brahmin family, was very great devotee of Sri Yalguresha, and during British period they used to put tax when a person used to do seva or perform rituals to any deity. So he wanted to perform puja to Sri Yalguresha, but he was from a very poor background, so he was not able to pay that tax. And he challenged the Britishers that at any cost, I will not stop my puja and worship. The Lord Himself will protect me, he told. And interestingly, the next morning, when he started his puja, the Britishers came and told that no, from now we will not torture you, but we cannot remove the tax from the village because they had got again a dream, and in which they got a message that if they prohibit Dasaya from performing puja, then they will lose their power in the Bijapur district where they had also a headquarters. So in this manner, we get to know that Sri Yalguresha came in the dreams of many people and bestowed them with blessings. That's why he's also called as talking god. Matanadu Devaru he is called as. So there is a particular system for that, where the flower or a tulsi or a, garlands which have been made to him has to fall from the right side of the hand from the idol. If it falls from the left side, then the devotee has to understand that the work may not happen very easily. There may come a lot of problems or struggles, and different symbolics are there. If it falls from a thumb, there is a different message. If it falls from the head of the Yalguresha, then there is a different message. I'm not going much deep into that. uh, and as I already told, it is situated on the banks of Krishna river. And presently, after independence, it is situated in the Nidagundi Taluk, Vijayapur district, in North Karnataka. So earlier, the Desais of Nidagundi were managing the administration of Yelgur. They were the Jahagirdars who were looking after the responsibility of Yelgur, not collecting the tax. Of course, they were looking after the um, village. If we go back to literary sources, then in Vasishtha Ramayana we get mention about Sri Alagureshwara temple. We also get mentioned that Sri Rama halted here for some time during his Vanavasa period, and told all the people who were situated in these seven villages that uh, the Vayu Deva will protect them forever from now. So that story we get from Vasishtha Ramayana, uh, and of course lot of mythological stories and oral traditions also we get to hear. Uh, as I was telling, the Govindaraja Kere is the place where earlier the idol was situated. Presently, the Kere is called as Godni Kere. There is a Kere, but it is not only just Kere. It's a hilly place, and there is also a small pond over there. We can till now see that. And one more interesting part of the history, which also has a proof in the gazetteers, is that the Maratha king Sri Bajirao, he donated around 480 acres to Sri Alaguresha. Uh, and it was a Jahagir given to it, and it was being maintained by, again, as I told, the Desais of Nidagundi. Presently, also the Nidagundi family, Desai family, looks after the agriculture lands. Of course, many of them went off after the law introduced by our earlier Prime Minister Shri Indira Gandhi ji, that the person who works on the field only owns the land. After that, it was decreased. The number of lands were decreased, but still they are working in their lands and are contributing to the temple. So this you can see, this is the main shikara of Sri Alaguresha and the Pravesha Dwara. This is the main Pravesha Dwara. Of course, they have been renovated. So the idol of Sri Alguresha is Swayambhu, but re-established by Bhimacharya Katti. The home, his ancestral home, to which I also belong, presently also is situated exactly in front of the temple. So in temple architecture, we analyze when we analyze, we get to know that the person who will be the main priest will be having the home exactly in front of the temple or beside the temple. This itself is a proof to prove that Sri Bhimacharya Katti was the main priest of the temple. And But it is renovated, but the inside part of the house still is the same as it was earlier. So the major elements of the Kartikotsav, which I will be covering today, are the Nevidya and Prasada concept, and the Kartika Bazaar or the Kartika market, which is the Jatra market, sacred rituals of Kartika Puja, cultural celebrations, and very importantly, the Okali Ata. So these are the major things which I will be focusing today. So before going to that, I just want to show up some paintings which are on the temple walls of Sri Alaguresha. So majorly the Narasimha and Sri Rama, Anjaneya, Sri Madhvacharya. These are all the major paintings which we can see on the temple, and this is the main uh, mandapa, Nritya mandapa, and Sabha mandapa. Earlier, the remaining part was not there; it is renovated only. If I hope that the cursor is visible, from this part itself is the old ancient part. The remaining ones all are renovated ones. So this is also a kunda which is recently constructed, and this is the administrative office of Yelgur. We can see that. Again, interestingly, in Yelgur, only Yelgureshwara Sri Anjaneya is not worshipped. So these are the Naga sculptures, which are of course ancient one, majorly dating back to Vijayanagara period, which proves that people of Yelgur, including Madhva Brahmins, used to worship Naga Devata also. And I'll come to this part later on. But before that, let me just show the pictures. So this is the gatekeeper iconograph, which is recently made on both left and right side. The slab of the temple is very old. It dates back to around Kalyani Chalukyan period, because this uh, Chatushkona style of slab majorly we can see in the Kalyani Chalukyan architecture. So this is Surya Narayana temple. So this proves that the outer part all is renovated, but the idol over inside is of course during was built during the Kalyani Chalukyan period. So from this we get to know that of course with Naga Aradhana, with Ganapati Aradhana, and with Anjaneya Aradhana, they also used to worship Surya Narayana, because Surya Narayana is the deity of knowledge, wisdom. So for a Brahmin who used to stay in Agrahara, knowledge and wisdom were very important, because that was their main profession: to learn, to teach, to write, and to promote the philosophy and the scriptures. So that's why they also used to worship Surya Narayana. Interestingly, this is the Tulsi Katte, which is situated inside the temple, which contains around 120 to 200 saligramas, which have been told through the stories, but nobody has excavated it. And interestingly, the Katti family is not allowed to purchase the Tulsi Katte when they build a new home, because this itself is considered as their Tulsi Katte. Till now, that ritual is being followed. Coming to one more part of the temple, it was also a temple worshipped for fertility. Not only the fertility of women, but also the land. Because it was situated on the banks of Sri Krishna River, the non-Brahmin community, who were part of agriculture, the peasant community, used to worship Sri Alguresha for a good crop every year. So and of course for good uh, kids birth also, it was worshipped. We can see some erotic iconographs. Of course, only on iconographs available in the temple we can do a separate lecture for 45 minutes, but I'll very briefly tell about it now. So these are some erotic iconographs found in the temple. This is Lajja Gauri, so we can see these things here. And this is again monkey iconograph. Majorly we see this in Kadamba temples too. So I analyzed that mostly the temple would have existed in Kadamba period also. And some floral uh, iconographs. And this particularly majorly can be seen in many Madhwa temples, basically in Hampi. Also in many temples we can see this star as a very pious rangoli also it is put. So here a person with ayudha also has been shown as a warrior. Shankha, which is the pious indication of Vishnu. Nrityangana, as earlier we get to know that here, of course, dances were performed during special occasions. It may be also the Kartik. This particular circle and this is the symbol of Vijayanagara dynasty. It is the logo of Vijayanagara dynasty, which clearly proves that the temple was patronized by Vijayanagara kings. It will be not correct to say that the temple was constructed by Vijayanagara kings, but of course it was patronized by them. This we can say. Just give me a second. Yes. Coming to the Nevidya and Prasada, the first element in the Kartikotsava. Before going to that point, Kartikotsava means the festival of lights. That is the meaning of Kartikotsava. It is, of course, a Jatre itself, as the Kartikotsava ceremony happens during the Kartika Masa, where in the whole Masa, lights are put off on Malagamba and around the temple. That's why it is called as Kartikotsava. The Kartika festival, it begins on Saturday and Sunday usually, because Saturday is considered as favorite day of Sri Anjaneya. On this particular day, from morning until 6 p.m. In the evening, everyone, whoever is present in the village, and the devotees who visit the temple, have to be on fast. They cannot eat rice or lunch. They cannot take lunch. They can have parar, like small tiffins they can have, but lunch will be served at 6 o'clock itself. So prasada distribution on Saturday is reserved for Brahmin community in Yalgur. A key highlight of Kartik is Puranada Holige, which is a favorite sweet of Sri Yalaguresha. And both on Sunday and Saturday, Puranada Holige is submitted to Sri Yalaguresha as a prasadam. And particularly, no one in the village consumes food, as I told before. The Nevedya is completed, and Nevedya is completed around 5 o'clock, and at 6:30 the lunch, or we can call it as brunch, because dinner and lunch both are combined in one, will be uh, given to all the devotees as prasada. And on the second day, which falls on the Sunday, usually people from different castes, primarily from scheduled caste and scheduled tribe, they also come and worship the god. But on both the days, Saturday and Sunday, there will be queue for the darshana, but none of them are allowed, including many Brahmins also are not allowed to enter the Garbhagriha, because continuous pujas will be going on. And again, on the second day, which is Sunday, Dasoham is served for non Brahmin people. So, this Dasoham is basically served to the non Brahmin devotees who are Harijanas by the Hugar community priest of the temple. So, in all the Hanuman temples of Karnataka, Hugars are priests. Of course, there may be Brahmin priests. With them, Hugars also are priests. They basically belong to Kshatriya background. And in Yalgur earlier, during Vijayanagara period, they used to uh, uh, sing, and they used to perform their art through some musical instruments. But later on, they also got the responsibility of worshipping Sri Alguresha. So their house is also situated near the temple, but not in the place where the Brahmin colony is. And offerings from different families of Harijana here are combined. These Harijana community people, what they do is, they come to Yalgur, they prepare the food over there, and they submit it to the Hugar Pujari. He mixes all of the submitted Nevedyam in one particular vessel, which will be majorly the silver vessel, and the Nevedya is done to Sri Alguresha, and the Dasoham is performed, where all the Harijana people sit, and the food is distributed. I have added the photo to showcase the custom in the Kartik. Just give me a minute. Yeah, this is how the Harijana people sit over, and the Dasoham is uh, of course served to them. Majority of them are will be females, but here and there we can see male devotees also getting the dasoham. These devotees, they don't eat it over there, but they take it to their home, and afterwards they eat. So that's how it is done. You can see that. And during the same time, on the second day also, the prasada for Brahmins is also served in Ugrana. You can see the Ugrana here. This is how the of course the food is prepared for thousands of people, interestingly. And in Ugrana, on both the days, of course, on the first day and second day, first day at 6 o'clock, and second day between 1:30 to 2:30, the food is served in the same place. And The Madhva Brahmin cooks only cook the food here, because it is served for Madhva Brahmins itself. And while Madhva Brahmin women from the village and some who visit from far distance help the cooks to cut the vegetables. Because while cooking for a huge amount of populations, a lot of help is required to cut the vegetables, clean them, wash off. So that's why voluntarily they come and help. And we can see and get mesmerized by number of vegetables they are cutting off here. So it will be a very mesmerizing visuals. And on the same time, of course, cultural programs also will be going on. I'll come to that part later on. uh, Approximately 2000 to 3000 Madhva Brahmins will be present, uh, which also includes other community people. So totally 3000 devotees will be present, including both the days, first and second day. One more important Nevedya which is popular in Yelgur is dry fruit Nevedya, which is majorly made up from five dry fruits and dry coconut powder and stone sugar, which we call as kallu sakre. This is uh, basically given as prasadam in the morning of Saturday, because the devotees will be on fast. Uh, they are given the dry fruit prasadam, which is not musari. In Brahmins, musari means where the water is contaminated, or where rice is contaminated. That is musari. Basically, the thing which we eat for lunch or dinner is musari. But dry fruits and coconut powder and kallu sakkare are stone sugar are not musari, so that is served as prasadam on Saturday. But only it is restricted to, again, as I can say, it is made by Madhva Brahmins, and they do nevidya to their own idols which are kept in their house, and they consume it as prasadam till the lunch is served. So next is the Kartika Bazara or market, which will be very beautiful. Different shops of earrings, necklaces, bags, and some snacks like chura, avalaki, jalebi shops, laddu shops, and balloon shops. And in fact, the iron vessels shop, many of them occur here, and some eateries also do, like watermelon juice, then coconut water shops, then uh, many such like potato chips shops. They prepare the potato chips in front of us and sell. So such many eatery shops and artifacts shops, they all come and put their tent over there. One interesting thing to be noticed in the bazaar of Kartik, Yelgur Kartik, is that the shops of bangles, the bale. So every year, each and every Madhva women who visits the Yelgur Kartik and who also are staying in Yelgur have to purchase this bangles. It has become like a custom over there, and a lot of beautiful bangles occur there, and they also get lot of profit from that. From the age of 3 to 2 years till, of course, 80, 90 years old women get these bangles. uh, and one more thing to be noticed here is that they put their tent exactly in the same place where in the last year they had. So the areas where they put their shops are reserved for the owner itself. Throughout, I am seeing the same shopkeepers from my childhood. It has not changed. They come, the place will be reserved, they put their shop, and in the next year also they will do it in the same place. So that is one more thing to be observed, which will be very common in all the jatras. And one more important, very key element to be noticed is Gadige Mosaru. I don't know whether this particular thing is sold in other jatras or not, but in Yelaguru this is very very important thing to be purchased by everyone. So if you go to Yelgur on the first day, which is Saturday, which will be Saturday usually, you get to see that many women selling gadige mosaru in the mud pots. The size of the mud pots differs, small, big, medium. So according to the demand of the customer, they sell it. And usually the Madhwa Brahmins purchase this gadige masaru and take hachida ulakki, which is, if we translate it in English, masala poha we can call, but not the poha, chuda, masala chuda, and if not, then plain chuda, which they convert into curd and poha. So curd, masaru avlaki. So they take it, take the gadige masaru and go to the Krishna river, have bath there. They sit on the banks of the river, they eat it, and that is such a beautiful experience. uh, Now of course it has decreased a bit due to modernization, of course, but if we see the earlier days, of course this was very famous, but till now we get this gadige masaru and many families do this experience till now. And people who are not staying in Yelgur but were from Yelgur, they come during the Kartik period, purchase this and give the same experience which they had during their childhood to their kids. So that has become a continuation of a tradition. There is no written document for this, but it's a oral tradition and experience tradition which has continued from generation to generation, which is very important thing. Next is sacred rituals of Kartik Puja. So the Yalgur Kartika Jatre is the end of agricultural seasons. So Yalgur, which was of course an old civilization of riverside village, was traditionally inhabited majorly by peasants of non-Brahmin community. Of course, maybe the owners of the lands would have been Brahmins, but the people who were working on the lands were of course non-Brahmin people. So they used to complete all their work burden which they used to do in the lands, and later on they used to enjoy the Kartik for 2 days. Of course now the agriculture has become like all season profession due to modernization techniques applied in the agriculture, but in earlier days it was not like that. The agriculture was majorly, as we know, was rain based agriculture, or the well based agriculture very minorly. uh, and they used to submit their crops as a result which they got from their hard work, and also used to pray to Sri Alaguresha that for next year also please bestow us with good crop in our lands. That was how it was done. Basically it was also a agricultural celebration and peasant celebration too. So the puja rituals during the Yalgur Kartik, they include both long-standing traditions and of course some newly introduced practices. So all the practices which presently are being done are not the ancient ones. Some of them are. The day which is on Saturday begins with the Kakad Arati, which is done to awake the god, awake the Sri Alguresha, and he is awakened from deep sleep. Uh, and in Dodda Pallaki, there are two Pallakis in the temple, Sanna Pallaki and Dodda Pallaki, big and small Pallakis. And Dodda Pallaki is majorly used for special occasions. In Dodda Pallaki, the god is carried out to the river, Krishna river, and he is brought back to the temple around 7:30, between 7:30 to 8:30, and after the procession, when the god comes back to the temple with the Utsava Murati, so lot of rituals start happening, like Abhishekam starts. For that also the water is brought from the Krishna river itself. From the water of the Krishna river, Abhishekam is done. Later on, following this, uh, Vayu Stuti is recited over there. And Pavaman Homa also is done. The Kunda which I showed, which was recently built, basically was built to perform this Pavaman Homa during the Kartik and other occasions too, which was earlier not the practice. If we see the ancient traditions from the our last past generation, these customs were not included. But now, Pauman Huma is Vayu Stuti is recited. And interestingly, for Vayu Stuti, the introduction to Vayu Stuti, which is Naka Stuti, is written by Sri Madhvacharya, which is also considered as one of his writings, important writings. And he is also considered as avatar of Vayu, so it is recited over there. And after Abhisheka, Vishesha Mahapuja is done, and Alankara is performed around 11 to 11:30, between that 11 to 11:30 a.m. And as part of adornment, ornamentation is done to Sri Aliguresha. Many gold, silver ornaments are put to him. Interestingly, Rumal Peta, which Rumal is circled around Sri Alguresha's head. Turban, we can call it as, or Peta, and a chalet also is put on his shoulders. So this is very unique to be observed. Uh, and additionally, sacred recitations, as I told, also are done. So these sacred pujas are conducted by Madhva Brahmins. Basically, on both the Kartik days, nobody is allowed inside, including Madhva Brahmin priests. No one else from the community, Brahmin community and non-Brahmin community, is allowed inside the Garbhagriha. Only the Madhva Brahmin priest is allowed, who will be performing all these particular rituals. And after that, on Sunday evening, there is a Bhanda Puja done. So this Bhanda Puja is basically done around the Okali Kunda, which will be covered whole year, but during Kartik itself it is opened. And majorly this Okali Atta is played by Harijana community. Men and women both participate in it. Some of them will be promised to God that next year we will be playing the Okali, so they perform it. Earlier it was more enthusiastically played, and natural involvement was there. But after the restrictions of human rights and constitutional restrictions, now very symbolically the Okali Atta is played. And this is the Malagamba, which plays a very important, prominent role in the Kartikotsava. All over this Malagamba, as we can see the small footsteps, Kartika Deepotsava will be lightened up. So this is a kurma which is in front of the Garbhagraha. Coming to next point, which is cultural celebrations. There is a group which is called as Sri Haridasa Sahitya Sangeeta Vedike, which has been made recently, and Mr. Sri Narayana Vadayar is the leader of that. He is the main chairperson. He looks after all the cultural celebrations over here. Classical music is performed. Bharatanatyam is performed. Lectures, religious lectures on Anjaneya Swami and related to culture, religion are also done over here. So it will be very nice to have the environment over. First day it is done exactly in front of the temple. Second day, the cultural celebrations happen in the Ugrana. So that is one unique thing which we can observe. So some other important festivals which are celebrated, as of course Kartika in Yalgur, are Ramanavami, Hanum Jayanti, Bhim Jayanti, and Madhva Navami, and of course Madhva Jayanti. So these are some of the important ones. Coming to conclusion, the oral tradition preserved through Smriti and Shruti, which we also listen in Vedas, has ensured that the Yalgur Kartik has been passed down safely through generations. Otherwise, mostly these traditions would have stopped at one particular point of time. But it has not. Through oral traditions, it has continued, like how cooking transfers from mother to daughter. and this tradition will undoubtedly continue, according to me, to the next generation also, because the families who are devotees of Sri Alguresha don't miss even a single year to visit this Kartik. So naturally they bring their kids also with them and show them the power of religiousness and spirituality. Naturally I believe that their kids also will continue performing in these particular Kartikotsava, and which is sustained by faith, devotion of families who follow Sri Alguresha. And it personally for me and my family, Sri Alguresha is a powerhouse, and it is also our Mane Devaru. So whatever problems occur with us, we always pray to them, and very interestingly, we don't have any explanation for that how it the problems get resolved. But yeah, just by praying, it actually gets resolved. Uh, so this was all about Sri Alguresha, and the picture over which I have added here is of Sri Alguresha, and Alankara was done yesterday itself. So this is the yesterday's picture, very fresh. So thank you so much. If anyone has any doubt or anything to add on, they can do. It was just a brief discussion. We can also discuss about it hours together. There is much more to it. Yeah, but this was just a very brief presentation. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I hope it was useful.
Very interesting, Nidhi ji. Actually, this belongs to a totally different genre of jatra than what was covered by the earlier jatras. Uh, it has the involvement of Madhva Brahmins. It has the involvement of the in the government language scheduled caste communities, SC communities. It has got that inclusiveness. It has got the rural nature of a classical tradition called Madhva tradition. So many interesting things that are happening in this. So thank you very much for that wonderful ethnography and experiential sharing and analysis of this a different kind of a jatra at Elgur called Elgur Kartika. With this, we come to the end of this symposium. Let us check if there are any further questions. Vayan Rao Garu has a question. Hope you are doing well. Your presentation is good and informative. I shall be happy if you could email me your presentation, PPT in question to Dr. Vayan Rao at yahoo.co.in. I hope Nidhi ji has noted down the email ID of Dr. Vayan Rao. Dr. Vayan Rao is a Sanskrit teacher, a very senior person, have been teaching Sanskrit courses from Hyderabad. His courses are very popular. There are registrations every year in a very big way. Thank you, Dr. Vayan Rao Garu, to have come to the event. And we had all important people attending the event from the morning, and we had a very good amount of registration. We had a wonderful, significant audience in the morning. All symposiums are successful because of the audience and their participation. And the success of this event also is mainly due to the great speakers, scholars that have come to make these presentations. We have younger scholars like Nidhi ji and very senior scholars and erudite people who are in various positions, academics, activists, and people of all kinds. Thank you very much. All of you. Thank you, uh, our team, organizing team, our Srinivas Garu, Koti Garu, who are the main pillars behind the success of any event. They take all the load of the organization. Mainly, our founder, Sri Harikiran Vadlamani Garu, who comes up with such interesting topics due to his incessant creativity. Even this topic was his choice. As I was saying, even the flyer was designed by him. And we are so glad to have got all the diverse topics also covered during the symposium. And I thank all the social media and other platforms who have given sufficient coverage and publicity to the event. With this, let us conclude the event with Shanti Mantra. Om Sahanavavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryan Karavavahai तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः